if for you going to Dearborn and listening to calls for prayer that start at 5:30 in the morning on a loudspeaker, if you going in and not being able to read the signs because they're all in Arabic, if you having to have halal as your dietary meal plan, if that is something that you really enjoy, Kim, and I'm being somewhat sarcastic but somewhat real at the same time, I invite you to go to Dearborn because you'll probably find a house for very cheap because nobody else wants to live there.
I don't need to live there. I don't have to live there. I mean, I like visiting. That's what I like about America. I have the options to go anywhere and everywhere. Just like I go to I did buy a house in the middle of Kosher town, by the way, and everything was kosher. And the Israeli flag was all over. And yet, like, what do you do? I mean, I was living in a Jewish neighborhood. So, but not just Jewish, because there's other parts of LA that are very Jewish. I was living in an Israeli Jewish neighborhood. And so, everything was kosher. There was a lot of Israeli flags. There were a lot of people wearing, like I said, different garb depending on which sect of Judaism they practiced. Okay, so what? I don't think anybody's calling out that part of California, and saying this is alarming. We got to make change. I mean, there is some of it, but I just don't see the issue, I guess, living there. And my problem is when it does infect into politics. And I agree with you on that completely. When they do come in and they say, we want you to spend a bunch of money on our foreign country. I don't know if I'm seeing Ilhan Omar say that, though. I don't know if I'm hearing her say, where is she from? Like, is she from Sudan or is she from Somalia? But whatever, I don't hear her. And that's why I don't know, because I don't hear her talking about that all the time.
Talking about what exactly? I missed your point.
Her native country, like her native country. I don't hear her talking about like give money to the Sudan, give money, or Somalia, or wherever she's from.
She's Somalia, by the way.
But I don't hear her saying like we need to fund Somalia.
Again, I want to be respectful. Then you're just not listening. That's really basically what it comes down to. She just the other day was saying that the president of Somalia is her president, that he is forever in her heart, that is her country. They sit there and they wave the Somalian flag. I cannot agree with you on this end. I think what you're doing, and I understand it to a certain degree, and you make some points that that can stand on their own. However, you haven't really answered some of the more challenging things I've put back to you. And I know you're interviewing me versus me interviewing you, but let's turn this more into a conversation. And I have a couple of questions for you, and we could go short on them. Okay. I asked you that if you're Catholic. I'm glad I know that now. All right.
Well, I'm not anything, but I grew up Catholic and Buddhist, actually, having parents of each.
Let's pretend for the moment that you're still Catholic. And
okay.
you and I say, you know what, we want to really spread the word of Catholicism. Let's go over and start in the countries where they've been resistant to that for pretty much about everywhere. And so we try to fill out visas to go to Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Qatar, and Iran. How many churches do you think, and how many priests do you think that we're going to get approval for?
So there are different countries. This is why America's so great. If they were just like us, then they'd be great too, in that way, I suppose. So
the answer is zero. I don't have. Your answer? Are you going to say zero?
No, my answer is that it's a question that doesn't matter. It's like, because it's a different country. So I don't have the expectation that a foreign country is going to be just like my country. I don't have that. I don't feel like it needs to be fair. I don't believe in that. I don't think Saudi Arabia has to let you in to preach Catholicism. They're their own country. I also don't want to be Saudi Arabia here, though, either. And I don't want to say, well, because they don't do it, we're not going to do it either. I don't want to become them, just like I don't think they need to become me. So just like China, I don't need to turn China into a capitalist democracy. China runs just fine the way that it does. But I also don't want China coming here and turning us into a communist country. But even then, we don't need to do that, because guess what? So many of the politicians are doing it for us, because they do this same thing that you're doing right now, which is it needs to be fair. No, it doesn't. I don't need to be China in order to be fair with China, because that's what it results into, because they're not going to change. And so the only way to become even Steven with that other country, whether it be China and their economic model, whether it be Saudi Arabia and the way that they are a one religious nation, if you want to be even Steven, they're not going to change. You know what that means? You got to change. And I don't like that. And that's what I do see. I see us changing into them, not the other way around, rather than us just standing firm in our own values and saying, the beauty of America is you can come here and yeah, you can go to Dearborn, Michigan, and you can go and preach and you can try to set up as many Christian churches as you want. You can do that there. You cannot do that in Saudi Arabia. But I don't care if you could do it in Saudi Arabia. I don't want to become Saudi Arabia. And I don't expect Saudi Arabia to become the United States.
Okay, so see, in our world where we live here in the United States, we don't have a problem if you want to come over here. If you want to make the change, because you want to, if you want to flee where they won't let you have freedoms, where they're going to throw you off a roof because you're gay, or they're going to cover you up because they think that you as a woman are less than a man. If that's where you want to flee from and you want to come here, great. We don't do that sort of thing. But what's happening, Kim, is that when they're coming here, they want to impose those same sort of culture and rules into our society. And if you look at London as a prime example, and I invite you really to, you should reach out to Tommy Robinson. He's great. He lives over there and he's fighting for it. You know, since 2016, when the Muslim Mayor Khan took over, there have been an enormous amount of changes in that area where the people of London were like, hey, we invited you in and you just bombarded us, made us change things around, and now we're the minority. We're losing our country because you want things your way. No, we didn't go to your country and impose ourselves on you. Don't do that coming here. Change the rules. If you're going to come here, follow the rules that we follow. Follow the culture that we follow. Since 2016, just on a church level alone, there are now less 100 churches they've closed since he's been there. And there are now, I think it's about 25% more mosques. The number one name for a young baby is now Muhammad. Okay. You've got 85 different Sharia councils. Now, it's not Sharia law. It is a Sharia council run by the people of who are Islamic in those areas. You will have some people tell you, I can't confirm it because I've never been there, but they seem pretty credible people, that there are no-go zones where you definitely do not go. And if you go in there, you're going to have a problem. You may not get out. That is the infiltration of a country and taking it over from within. And the way that they're doing it in London and the way they're doing it in the United States is they're taking advantage of the charitable, open society that we have. We'll welcome you in, come welcome in. But the one thing that we want you to do is follow our laws and assimilate. And these people are not assimilating. They want to have their own rules. They want to have their own laws. They want to have the Christmas change to being so this way they're happy. If you don't like the calendar reading Christmas break, don't come. You know, I will invite you.
But the thing is, Dennis, is like,
hold on, Kim. Let me make this final one point to punctuate it home. You text me tomorrow and say, hey, Dennis, I'm coming to Florida. I said, all right, great, Kim, here's my address. Come on over. And if the first thing you do when you walk in is criticize all my furniture and make a demand to the mayor that Dennis Lynch changes his coffee table because that insults you, guess where you're not coming again? You're not coming to my home. But when you keep on going and you keep on pounding that I must change and you break me down to the point of where now I'm a racist and I'm a scumbag and I'm everything else, that's what you're doing. And now I build a resistance to you. Now I build a resistance to you and the whole family that comes with you. And that is what is happening in the United States. You're trying to blame this on us as if we're the bad guys.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, I understand the challenge, you know, just going back to like the Christmas break, winter break thing. I understand if this is offensive, if, you know, because we experienced this here in Idaho with an atheist, like it's like the one lone atheist and the one lone atheist wants to, you know, everybody else wants something and the one lone atheist wants to do this one other thing. And then they kind of sue and they demand it and then we're forced into it by the courts because it's one person. But if it's a majority, you know, if you're living in an area and the majority of the people moving in start to outnumber you and they are people that don't celebrate Christmas and the school is filled with, 80% of them don't celebrate Christmas. That's part of the American way, is that then you can decide we don't actually want to call it Christmas break. We're going to call it winter break, because why would we? The majority of us here, if every single student in that classroom is Muslim or atheist or whatever, and they're not Christian at all, why are you calling it Christmas break? It is kind of funny, and that's the thing about America, is that we're able to make those kinds of changes, but they're not being like canonized into law, right? I mean, if then the demographics change in 30 years and now it's a whole different group of people living in that community and going to that school, maybe they'll make a different change and they'll call it some other type of break. And that's just, that's just the way it goes. As far as like these Sharia law councils, I don't understand this, right. Again, we're not, Sharia law doesn't scare me as far as like what it is and these councils inside. I mean, we have that in Catholicism. There's rules. Can you not get a divorce? Can you not get married? Can you not do this, that, and the other? There's rules. No, it's not an American rule. It's not a law in the actual, the city will let you do whatever you want. It's the church. Will the church recognize your marriage? Will the church recognize your divorce? Will the church recognize XYZ, right? That's the same sort of law. And a lot of religions have that. Mormons have that. Mormons have their own judgments and councils, and they'll sit there and decide whether or not you can have, do XYZ thing. Of course, you're free legally from this, by the state to do whatever you want. You're of course free legally to go get that divorce. The church might not recognize it. And so a lot of people are hindered because they say, well, no, I can't because the church, not the law, the church. So I don't know the difference. So that's why when I look at like, oh, people are living under Sharia law, that's their choice. Just like Mormons live under a completely different law as well. The law of chastity, the law of, they've got all kinds of different laws that they live under, and they call them laws, but they're not actual legal laws. And I don't see anybody, we're not freaking out about the Catholic laws or the Mormon laws or the Jewish laws that people live under, and they feel governed by those laws.
Kim, I think you have this fundamentally wrong, with all due respect again. I mean, in the Catholic religion, if I go and steal something, they're not going to cut off my hand. If I go and, if my wife cheats on me and asks for an annulment, the church may not give it to her. That's a principle. It's the principle, okay? Whereas if I take you over to Iran and you steal something.
But that's Iran. We're talking about America.
I know what you're doing is,
they can't cut off your hand in America.
We're talking about, you just said the difference between Sharia law. You said it doesn't concern you, Sharia law, because Catholicism has its set of laws. It's not a law.
Right. But they're still subject to the laws, the overriding laws of the government still override whatever those laws are. So you can't override the government.
No, in Iran, for instance, Sharia law is the law of the land.
Right, but that's Iran. This is America. That is not the law of the land. So if the people in Dearborn, Michigan, for example, want to live under Sharia law, they have to live under a Sharia law that still conforms to the law of the land. And when they break that law of the land, they go to jail, just like anybody else. So it's not like they're allowed to live under a Sharia law where they can cut off your hand, for example.
Okay, I see the point that you're trying to make. Let me ask you a different question. If it turns out to be that the fears or the predictions that we have for the city of New York turn out to be true, is your position that, hey, that's a good thing if New York turns into Detroit and it becomes a complete mess? That's okay. If crime rises by 30%?
Well, for one, like I said, for one, there's a lot of crime already in New York City. So Mamdani's not going to change that. It's already bad. So, if it...
And why do you think that is, Kim?
Well, I don't know exactly why big cities have so much crime, but, LA has crime.
I do.
And there's areas of LA I cannot go into, and it has nothing to do with Muslims. And I might not get out alive.
I know why it is. It's because they're run by, if you look at the cities with the biggest problems in this country, including not being able to pay their bills, they're run by Democrats. And so therefore, you have many different problems in terms of crime and homelessness and unruliness and just general, we can't pay our bills. We're giving out money to everybody. We're letting everybody in, do whatever it is that you want. I mean, let's not forget that Mayor Adams started the decline of New York even at supersonic speed by putting up a billboard and saying, hey, if Florida doesn't want you, come on to New York. And then it wound up draining New York of so many different resources. So the left continuously comes up with these asinine policies that never work. They offer people this promise of, we're going to give you things for free. Nothing in life is free, unfortunately, except for the air that we breathe. Aside from that, every single city looks like an absolute apocalypse because of the Democrats. There's
Yeah.
no doubt. No, does that
No,
not
I mean,
say that
it might, no, for sure. There's corruption in politics. I don't know if there would be that. It just, the reason why I'm not 100% willing to pin it totally on liberal policies is just because these are just really large cities. I don't think we have a single large city in this country that's Republican. So we don't have anything to compare it to properly.
And why is that?
I don't know why we don't have a single big city where people won't vote Republican in the big cities. I mean, that to me is a little bit like, clearly the policies aren't popular with a lot of the people because the majority of the people are choosing the other policies.
So, you know what those policies
but we don't
are,
have
Kim?
Well, what do you think they are that's causing that?
So,
I mean,
so
the vast majority of people are not on welfare. So we can't blame it on, it's the welfare voters, because the vast majority of people are not on welfare. And they're still
Kim,
voting liberal, and they're not getting anything for free. In fact, they're getting a lot of taxes.
Kim, I'm going to disagree with you wholeheartedly. I don't know if you're actually looking at the same places I'm looking at.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.